What is up, guys? 7-0 Savage here. Finally back from a small YouTube hiatus, and I could not be more excited. I did get distracted by a side quest in the last few months. I took some time off over Christmas break to finish the wall panel project in the van. After all of the wall panels were cut out and ready to be painted, I then realized I live in Tahoe and it's about 20 degrees in the winter, and you can't really paint things when it's 20 degrees outside. The paint doesn't adhere properly. So now that it's the end of winter and things are warming up again, we finally finished the garage workshop project. It turned out legendary. It looks so good, and I cannot wait to build more projects in there for the years to come. And on that note, let's get to the actual point of this video and unveil the van for the winter season and see how much stuff broke. And I know if I don't mention it, I'll get about 100 comments asking what cover this is. It's called the GOLDINE Class B RV cover. I've actually really liked it. It's super thick and durable, and with all of these straps that are holding it down, it survived some pretty intense windstorms over the winter. I'll put a link to this cover in the description below. Quite a good feeling to finally take that cover off and see the van that we've built underneath it. I think she's looking pretty good, if I say so myself. So one problem that's gonna prevent us from actually putting this cover away is that on the front here, it's got a nice about 3-inch layer of ice. We got ourselves the space heater. So this is the most redneck solution I could think of. Taking bets on whether or not you think this ice will melt first or this thing will set on fire. So let's do a quick walk around of the vehicle, make sure there's no damage. All right, so coming over here, not seeing any real damage. I think that's just a water spot. Over here, good to go. Oh, I do see like a little tiny, like the slightest, you probably can't even see it on camera. That's probably from the snowblower right there. But it doesn't look too bad. Oh, and by the way, this wire hanging out right here is just a trickle charger connected to the car battery. Then I plugged it into an outlet in my house. Just gonna prevent the car from dying, at least hopefully. In fact, let's go ahead and see what happens if we start this puppy up. A little nervous. Okay, it's an absolute mess in here right now. I'm still mid wall panel project, so pretty much everything is ripped out of here. Let me see if I can finagle my foot in here and start it. RIP. Let's see what happened. Okay, so this little arrow light on my trickle charger was on, and it's definitely quite wet on the bottom. I'm pretty sure this has just been sitting on the snow, so I think the battery did die. Let's go ahead and dry this off and see if we can get the trickle charger turning back on again. A little blowy. Just like the N64 cartridges when we were kids. Breath of fresh air actually worked perfectly. It looks like this thing is charging back up. We're gonna have to wait a little while for this thing to actually get the van to enough charge where it can start, as this is only a 2-amp trickle charger. This thing worked pretty well when it wasn't sitting directly in snow, so maybe next year I need to like zip tie it to this step or something like that. But in general, it works really well, and these things are super cheap. I'll put a link to it in the description below. So it turns out that the OEM battery that came with the van, the starter battery, is completely dead, and I have my trip in a couple days. Thankfully, I was able to find a matching battery locally. It's not a matching brand, but this is like the exact same battery that looks like it was just rebranded by a different manufacturer. I'll put a link to this in the description below if any of you guys have the same problem. I hope that Mercedes would help me figure this out. I just don't have the time to go through Mercedes and set up a service appointment and all that stuff. Believe it or not, I actually had problems with that original OEM battery like from the day I got this van. If I didn't start the van and let the thing recharge every 2 weeks, it would die. I've never had another car that died that quickly. Hopefully this one works. I'm gonna finish installing it and we will try. All right, new battery's installed. Let's go ahead and see if this puppy starts up now. Come on, baby. Boom. No problemo. Hell yeah. Stoked. So that covers it for the exterior. Now let's go inside the van for the parts that I'm really scared about, specifically the plumbing system. Da, 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 da. Lights on. Well, that works. It's obviously extremely messy in here. I still have to finish the wall panel project. First thing I want to check is all of the cabinetry and the wood and anything that was kind of screwed or bolted together to see if For any reason, temperature might have affected that. I don't really know. At one point after I finished this ceiling, it got cold enough where the wood shrunk and actually the ceiling panels no longer like stuck to each other in the tongues and grooves. And I had to pull them down and redo it in a way where I like screwed them on in more places. Looks like the ceiling is good though. Let's take a look at the bathroom. Everything in here seems to be pretty good. All of the caulk lines are still sealed. Nothing came separated. After a quick once over, looks like all of the cabinetry is still intact and no damage. All the latches still work. Although the latches in these types of conditions are super sticky. Like you can see this one's not even, you know, going back on itself. And also, now that I've had these latches in the van for long enough, I think the right way to sum up how these things work is beauty is pain, because you definitely catch yourself on these things and they're a little bit sharp. I really don't think that I would use these latches at my next van. I was really tempted by how nice they look aesthetically, but a little bit too painful for my taste. If they did fix the stickiness and the sliceability of these, I'd probably consider them again. Now we gotta check the two main systems that may potentially have problems. We gotta check the electrical system and we gotta check the water system. Let's start with the electrical one first. Nice thing about this van, everything electrical is controlled from within this cabinet right here. So we have all of our switches and doohickeys to test this thing out. I'm basically just gonna flip through all these things and make sure that they all work. First one I wanna test, since we're right here and on camera, is the bed. So let's see if this thing still works. Dang. A little squeaky. I think things might have shifted around, but it definitely still works. Let's try the inverter. Oh, I heard it flip on. It's doing its little beep. I'm gonna briefly check the water pump to make sure that thing works. Okay, it did. We'll get into that a little bit more in a sec. Cell booster turns on. I'll have to test the functionality, but I can't imagine that thing broke. And then the gray valve, let me turn this on, see if I can hear it. Yep. I can barely hear it in the background. I don't know if you guys can. This thing still works. Let's make sure we close it though. Since we got our battery monitor here, we can see we're currently drawing 3.9 amp. I'm gonna wait to turn the water heater on until there's actually water in it, since I did drain it before. I don't want anything to go wrong there. Diesel heater, this interface still works. Air conditioner, not gonna need it right now considering it's only 43 degrees outside. Might have to wait till summer to test this thing out again. Fridge seems to turn back on and I hear the compressor running already. Good to go there. So everything electrical related seems to work as it did before winter, which is really nice to know. I did not want to fix any of those problems. I did have to charge up the battery bank, I think twice throughout the winter. Really important to note though, the 2 times that I did charge the batteries, I had to make sure it was a little bit of a warmer day. It was like at least above 30 degrees. And then I came in here and I turned the diesel heater inside of the cabin on to heat it up in here quite a bit. You got to make sure that your batteries are above 32 degrees or else it's really bad. You basically permanently damage lithium batteries if you try and charge them below 32 degrees. So that was a little bit stressful, but I made sure it was like at least 40 degrees before I even tried to charge them. I'm also not sure if the Renogy batteries that I got, they're like the 170 amp hour ones, if they're smart enough to know not to charge when they detect that they are below 32 degrees. I didn't want to test that out for myself, as it is almost a $10,000 battery bank. So now time to move on to what I am most fearful of, and that is the water system. We got to make sure none of our pipes exploded and that everything still runs properly. So for reference, the winterization process that I did for the plumbing system was pretty straightforward. All I did was open the gravity valve for the freshwater tank. Then I opened the drain valve for the water heater. I used the gravity drain for the gray water tank to get all the water out of there. And then I ran my water pump when the water tank was empty to try and flush all of the water out of the pipes. And that's all I did. So I lifted the bed all the way up to the ceiling. Let's go ahead and see how things are looking. So very first thing that you might notice here, this is actually not a surprise to me. I figured this one out a couple months ago, but it is definitely something that went very wrong over this winter. This water filter completely shattered about 1 month into freezing season. Cool part is this water filter is made by a company called ClearSource, and I pretty much reached out to them. They immediately sent me a new water filter and it showed up in only a couple of days. to my surprise, they actually sent me 3 new water filters. These ClearSource water filters are not cheap by any means, but I'm super impressed with their customer service and I highly recommend using these things. I'll put a link to the ClearSource water filters in the description below. All right, we can go ahead and put the new filter housing on. Should be good to go. So a quick spot check on the rest of these pipes in here. I'm actually not seeing anything else that looks like it is cracked or shattered, at least with a quick visual inspection here. Yeah, everything looks pretty good to go. I'm gonna take a quick peek underneath the van real quick to make sure there's nothing shattered. Okay, so my water lines come out from all of the systems that we just looked at down through the floor of the van right here. We got a couple of different drain valves for like the hot water heater, and this is just the gravity drain for the water tank. Then we got hot and cold water, as well as a couple of gray tank valves running this way. For reference, my gray tank is right here. And then the hot and cold water, as well as the gray tank up to the sink, run this way up through the floor of the van to the galley unit over there. Then we get the shower gray line coming down this way. And based on a quick visual inspection here, nothing is cracked. So I'm gonna put a little bit of water into this system. We're gonna pressurize it, see if there's any leaks. Not looking forward to this, really hoping that there aren't any. Hopefully the water on my house is not still frozen. All right, we're getting some water up into the tank here. I can currently hear it filling up. I'm not seeing any leaks yet, which would be kind of crazy if there were, because there's really only one connection here. Okay, now we can see what happens when we turn the water pump on and see if there's any leaks in the water system. Sounds like it's pumping water. It's definitely pumping water. It's gonna have to fill the whole hot water heater up before it really gives us anything here. All right, so we turned everything on. We got the system mostly pressurized. It's like about half as much pressure as I normally have from this sink. The good news is we don't have any leaking on any of these connections. And I think the reason that we're good, even though there was still a little bit of water in the lines after I gravity drained it, is the fact that we use that ProPex tubing, which is way different than the PEX that you get at the hardware store. You can get a lot of details about it in the plumbing video that I made on this van, but that ProPex tubing basically holds an insane amount of PSI, and that allows the water inside of it to freeze, and it's not gonna rupture the pipes. It's not gonna cause the fittings to leak. I'll put a link to all of the ProPex parts that I used for the plumbing system. I highly recommend using that stuff. It is just such a good solution. There's a couple of things that I'm planning on doing for next year in order to avoid the water filters bursting. First thing I think I want to do is put a drain valve at the lowest point of the freshwater lines. So underneath the van where you saw the cold and the hot water line, that's the lowest point that the water lines go. I think I'm going to put a valve there, and then I'm basically going to take an air compressor to the underside of the sink faucet. I think that's going to fix the problem of there being residual water left into those water filters. And it's actually going to make sure that there's like no water in the lines, as opposed to this time where like pretty much all the lines still had water in them. And next year, I'll probably just unscrew the water filters and leave them off for the season. That sounds like a smart thing to do. Another thing I want to do to the water system before next winter is add a little bit of heat tape on all of the outside plumbing. If you put heat tape on all those pipes, even if it gets below freezing, you can still use your water system. I'm looking for like a 12-volt solution for heat tape. All the stuff that I've seen online is like 120 volt. I don't want to have my inverter running the whole time. If you guys know of a good 12-volt heat tape solution for plumbing, let me know, because I'd be super interested in installing it. And that actually sums up testing the entirety of the functions in the van. Even though we did take that small casualty of the water filter housing bursting, I'm pretty surprised with how few things broke over the course of the winter. The van has been unveiled. I am back on YouTube, super stoked to be here. Throughout spring and summer, I'm super excited to travel around in this thing and actually battle test it. So if you guys are interested in seeing the rest of this build or the travel videos that are upcoming, you already know what to do. Smash the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for bearing with me while I had to build that workshop. And for all of you who stayed subscribed to the channel during that hiatus, really appreciate you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.